house. All your information is that you're going to be successful in that purchase. Somebody outbids you, you don't get the house. For you, it's a tragedy, right? But if a bomb dropped on that house tomorrow and wiped out everybody that lived in the house, you'd change your mind that you're devastated. You'd now feel that you were very lucky. Do you see that at the time you missed out on the house? You don't, because that's in the future and you don't see the future. For Hashem, there's no present, past, and future. It's all one thing. So we don't know the consequences of what's going on. All we know is what we are given access to. And one of the critically important parts of that duty that you have with the information that we do get access to is to understand that it is only a window and there's plenty more beside it, and we don't have access to that. And that's the fundamental plank in the concept of betochen, of trust in Hashem. That notwithstanding something is turning out contrary to the way you planned it or wanted it, that you understand this betochen can become so strong that a tzaddik doesn't feel disappointment. You understand what this means? Can you imagine a life in which you are so certain of your relationship with your God, and you are so certain that everything that's happening is for your good and for your benefit, whether it's painful or not, whether it's part of your plan or not, but you're certain that it is, that you'll never be disappointed. You want to go to the shop and buy a hamburger, and you get to the shop and the last hamburger's sold. Normal people are disappointed. I wanted the hamburger, it's not there. But it is possible to get to a level of understanding that that hamburger wasn't good for you, wasn't right for you. And if it was right for you, you would have got it. You haven't got it. So you've got to work with that and work out why this is better. And it has to be better, because otherwise Hashem wouldn't have done it. So we go back to the old adage that everything that happens to us is Hashgacha Pratis, is divine providence. How we react to it is free choice. But part of that free choice is the insistence on not saying, I've got to understand it. I don't. You don't have to understand it. You have to work with it. You have to have betochen in it. And people with real betochen, people with real trust, to such an extent, never unhappy, never disappointed, never anxious. What's to be anxious? How can you be anxious? By the way, I'm just giving the sheer. I mean, I'm no better at this than anybody else, but I'm just saying that there are, I mean, you have to understand, the Lubavitcher Rebbe was never disappointed in something that happened. Did his heart break over the Holocaust? I assure you his heart broke over the Holocaust. Right? And when he was asked about it, he repeated what the Friedrich Rebbe said. What do you want from me? I'm not God's lawyer. I'm not God's lawyer. I don't understand it, you don't understand it, so what? Our job is to do, not to ask. So why did Yaakov is one of the Ovois? He's one of the three forefathers. So if he davens for Shalva, can't be anything wrong with it. So you and I are going. Don't beat yourself up when you're asking for the money to come through, or the children's health to be better, or your relationships to be better. We daven for health, we daven for children, we daven for money. Why do we daven? Because we want it. We're hardwired to want it. That's our Nefesh HaBahamis wanting. But the Nefesh Elokis has got to be able to work with that Nefesh HaBahamis and make it understand that if it doesn't happen, And if you're not granted what it is that you are asking for, it's for your good. Do you understand? If you have this perspective, it's a different life. It's a completely different life. This is the gateway to real happiness. So when Yaakov prays for Shalva and doesn't get it, he doesn't give up on his frumkeit. He doesn't say, well, that being the case, I'm going to divorce my wife and go out and find a different way of life. He still remains a frum yid, learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. Does he understand it? He says he's got to understand it. He's got to work with it, make it as good as possible. Now let's go to the Shvatim. Now, there's another thing. There's a mad, without understanding the Chassidus of this, I don't understand how anyone learns this Torah. We have a rule in Gemara. You're not allowed to show one child more favoritism than another. You know that? That's a rule in Gemara. Here we have Yaakov, one of the Ovois, choosing one of his 12 children, making him, it says openly in the Torah, he loved him more than all his other children. He made him a coat of many colors, as it's translated. By the way, these many colors, it's code for oiros. They're various lights. He had that the coat of many colors was a recognition that Yosef's neshama was from Atzilus. That's why we had to have the language, and that it was so high that it was complete with all the colors of creation, whereas the brothers were at a much lower level. How did this translate in? We're running out of time, but I'll try and make this quicker. How does that translate into actual action? In actual action, the brothers said this: you know what? You're talking to me about B'tochen, you're talking to me about wanting to have a different life, you're talking to me about learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, not getting caught up with the Las Vegases of our day and the what's the name of that casino in Piedmont or wherever it is, and the Crown, and not the criminals, and not the drug trade, and not the this, and not the that. You're talking to me about all of that. I get it, but it's too hard. So we're going to be Frum Yidden, and we're going to live in ghettos, and we're going to dress in a way where we recognize each other, behave in a way that we recognize each other, live insulated lives, protected against the evils of the world. Right? And you've got to know that throughout history, a lot of Jews, frum Jews, good men, good women, have adopted this point of view, and very successfully. They brought up beautiful children who had beautiful children, who've had beautiful grandchildren, and they've never been out of Monsey or never been out of wherever it is, and never been out of Geula or Bnei Brak. They don't have televisions. God forbid a television. You know, there's a huge sociological problem at the moment because, as you know, every kid's best friend is his phone, and the problem is the phone's connected to the internet, and this is a massive problem in yeshivas because most yeshivas, from yeshivas in the world, don't want to let the kids have their phones, and the kids can't live without their phones. So they're coming to a crash here, a sociological crash, which didn't exist before. I don't want to go into it. I'm not going to be able to solve it. I'm just sharing with you that this concept of wanting to remain aloof from the world for good has been very much part of the Jewish psyche throughout history. And that was the position of the Shvatim. That was the position of the other 11 brothers. The brothers wanted to maintain an existence where they weren't seduced into failure by the lure of attractive Gashmias or seductive Gashmias. So they wanted to stay out of it. So what did they do? They were shepherds. You're a shepherd, you're on a mountain, what's going to lead you astray? Blades of grass growing, right? Thunder and lightning in the sky, that's all there is. Now Yosef had all the lights. Yosef was from Atzilus, they were from Yetzirah, or a lower part of Atzilus. There's an argument about that. But Yosef was at a completely higher level than his brothers, and depending on who you follow, Yaakov, his father. His father recognized that. That's why when he had the dream of his father and mother bowing down to him, the father and the sheaves, the father looked forward to the day when that would happen. What did that mean? He looked forward to the day that this level of revelation of Yosef's position would become manifest, would become obvious. But what did Yosef, why did they hate him so much? What were they so jealous about? They were frightened. They were frightened that Yosef was espousing a way of life which meant death to Frumkeit. He wants to go to Las Vegas and live. He wants to go to the Crown and buy a uniform. You know, I tell the story of a rabbi who used to be here in Sydney, a young boy. He wasn't a rabbi yet. He was finishing yeshiva in Sydney. And he used to go in his kapota and his hat to the sheaf in Double Bay, Motzei Shabbos, after Shabbos, and sit with the Mariah kids and drink with them and make them frum. Now, you have to have a special coating. You've got to have a special strength to do that. Otherwise, what happens is you become one of the guys in the sheaf. Instead of bringing the guys in the sheaf up to you, you go down to the guys in the sheaf. So that was their worry. Their worry was, you behave like this, dress like the Goyim do, behave like the Goyim do, and what will happen with Yiddishkeit? What will happen to Torah and mitzvahs? What they didn't understand was that Yosef had the koyach, because his neshama was so high, he had the koyach of being able to enter into the lowest levels of Gashmias, from Atzilus down to Asiya, and work with Asiya and elevate it to Atzilus. And why we learn this, and when we learn that the Torah is nitzkis, it's eternal, it applies to kol echad ve'echad miYisrael, every single Jew, in every generation, especially in the week of that week's Sedra. Why are we learning this at the moment? For us to understand that we are not limited to the level of the Shvatim. That a Jew is living in these times, and you know, if these yeshivas only learned enough Chabad Hasidus, they would understand that the kids have got to have their phones. I'm not an educator, so I don't know at what age, I don't know, but somewhere or other, there's got to be a concept that they've got to have access to this Gashmias, and they've got to be able to deal with it. And part of the fact that they can deal with it is that they're born into a generation where it exists like this. We don't live pretending that God's reality doesn't exist. God's reality exists because of Hashgacha Pratis. So if these phones are available and they have so you can argue the other way. You can say, well, these phones are available with the internet just so that you can say no to them. That's an argument. I guess that's their argument. We don't learn like that. I mean, I don't know about phones. That was my example. And there are probably many Chabad yeshivas that prohibit phones. I don't know. I'm just telling you, I'm just trying to explain a concept. That the concept that the Shvatim had was that you obviously have to be a tzaddik. You have to, for them, they would tzaddik him. But they would tzaddik him with certain safeguards. And without those safeguards, they were frightened that they were vulnerable to perish. And that Yiddishkeit would perish. Whereas Yosef's position was that he was empowered, not his own doing, he was empowered to be able to deal with Gashmias, and not only deal with it, but become the viceroy, become the most powerful human being on the planet next to Paro, because Egypt was the most powerful nation on earth. And the Rebbe explains that this is a very important piece of personal consciousness, that we have to understand that we are Yosef. Because the Ovois, Avram, Yitzhak, and Yaakov are called the Ovois. Yitzhak is called, Yosef is called Yosef HaTzadik. And we, Am Yisrael, trace our lineage from Yosef HaTzadik. Why? Because we are empowered to go into Gashmias as it is in Gashmias and elevate that Gashmias. And to stand aloof from it makes one derelict in one's responsibility of making a dira b'taktoinim. The whole thing about making a dira b'taktoinim is to make the takton the dira, to make the bottom, lowest part of creation a place for God. So, we have to make oiros in Kalim. They have to be in Kalim. You can't just have mad oiros. You can't just go on the internet and go whatever's on the internet and spend your life there. On the other hand, to say that there's no internet means that you're making Kalim which just don't allow any light. No good. That's not how we learn. And in terms of Seder Istalshalos, we have to understand that certain people are limited at certain levels. If you are conscious of the fact that you can't get past from Asiya to Yitzira, or from Yitzira to Bria, or from Bria to Atzilus, which most people can't, so you have to learn where your boundary is, learn what that recognition is, and not spoil your life by going beyond it. Now, there's a very big tension there, because the Rebbe made it clear to all of us, to everybody, that they have potential beyond their wildest imagination. Every single person, no matter who it is. The simplest garbage man, with all due respect to garbage man, or whatever it is, the simplest person, lawyers. The simplest lawyer has the potential to be great. What does greatness mean? Greatness means to be in tune with your responsibility as a Yid, to learn Torah and do mitzvahs, and have a consciousness of your relationship with your God. And that consciousness needs to be there all the time. So that, just like Yaakov, when things aren't going right, the answer is, so what? You can daven, and you can hope that, but you can't be disappointed, because Hashem knows better. And if you're Yosef, you ignore these people that tell you that you can't do this and you can't do that. You can do it, and you can elevate it. So l'chaim.
Why you call the Joseph brothers? They're half brothers.
I guess technically yes. Well, he has one brother, Binyamin.
Not part of them.
Yeah. But you're right. But everywhere they're called the brothers. But you're right. Technically they are.